Hey, everybody. Today, I don't know, I might call today like the culminating activity for us in our trig unit. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to work our way through and we're going to solve some acute triangles. So we're talking about angles less than 90 degrees, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to go start to finish. Everybody should be good with what the instruction solve means because we spent some time solving right triangles. I want to talk a little bit about strategy today, and I want to talk big picture stuff in terms of how we recognize what we have in front of us in our triangle so we can be as efficient as we can be. We also need to talk a little bit about exactness and some rounding and when we can use rounded information and so on. But I think for us today, there's really nothing new. Like we're adding in and we can use these three problems that we're going to go through today as a little bit of a sum up for us. So let's jump right in. You see the instruction solve, and there's your triangle ABC on the right side. Remember, solve means find everything that's missing. So within the triangle, we are missing one of our angles, angle B. You would need to find side A and side C. Okay? I think I should be good to ask you to pause the video now and try this one on your own right at the very beginning. Okay? I want you to give it a shot. Don't worry if there's some hesitancy. That's okay. But I want to see how well we match up. Okay? Pause the video now. Okay, we are back. I'm going to just try to slide that diagram a little bit to the right. And now let's jump right in. I hope that we would find anything at the very beginning that we could do without technology. And with that, you know that you can find angle B because you know the other two angles. And so I know that my angle B has to be 180 minus the sum of the other two. And that's a 90, 103. And that's going to give us 77 degrees for angle B. Okay? I would expect to see all of that information written out. All of it. It doesn't cost you much time. It's a good habit to get into. Okay, now that we know that angle B is 77, we've got the angles taken care of. Now we got to jump over to sides. And there is nothing in this that is going to dictate my order. Okay, the first thing I need to recognize, I am working with a triangle that is not a right triangle. So, SOHCAHTOA, Pythagorean theorem, that's all out the window. My choices then become, do I want to use sine law or cosine law? And I have to be honest with you, I think that there is a better way, and I want to put that idea in your head. I think sine law is easier to work with than cosine law. And so if I have a choice between those two, I am always going to pick sine law. But sine law requires an angle and a corresponding side. And you will notice that originally on my triangle, I do not have that. But now that I've solved for angle B, and I know that angle B is 77 degrees, now I do have my magic ratio. That's the way the sine of an angle and a side compare throughout the triangle. I'm going to use my B's. So, whichever order you wanted to go through, doesn't matter. Did you want to solve for A first? Did you want to solve for C first? Your choice. I want to make sure that we are good on exhausting information. So I'll go alphabetical like I normally seem to, and I'll find A first. I'm looking for a side, so I'm going to put sides on top. So my side A has to compare to the sine of 68, its corresponding angle, the same way my B ratio has to relate. And there we go. Okay, we should be pretty automatic with this by now. Sine law we should be comfortable with. I am going to multiply out my sine 68. And now I can turn that into a length the way we talk about it. We should be good. No rounding rules mean that we are going to round to 2 decimal places. And we should come in on approximately 13.32 centimeters. Okay, hopefully we've got our A and we are good. Okay, now you could use your A's because you know both of your A's, but don't. Remember, your A is rounded. And if you're going to use rounded information to go and find something else, then you are going to be off. More off than what you need to be. I'm going to exhaust my information. And what I mean by exhaust is I'm going to use it up. Sometimes, and I'll take blame on behalf of all of your math teachers for this, sometimes we give the impression like, well, I used a piece of information and I used it once, so I've used it up. And I really want to make sure that that is not an idea I put in your head. I'm going to use that ratio of my B's over and over and over again for as long as it is useful. So what I mean is, when I now go through to find C, well, side C has to compare to sine 35 the same way my B's do again. 14 over sine 77. I'm going to keep using it over and over again. I can't use it up. I make that exact value for C. Then the rest becomes button pushing again. And so when I go through to find my approximate, I am going to get my 8.24, put on my units, and I should be good. Okay, what I'm going to do is just get rid of that green outline around my B's. We have now officially gone through and we have solved our triangle. You found everything that was missing. The angle in red, the sides in blue. Now is my time where I take 15 seconds and I make sure that my triangle is proportional. Okay, maybe I start with the smallest angle. So I look at my triangle, there is my smallest angle, 35. It better have the smallest opposite side. Check, works. 8.24 is the smallest side. Maybe now take my biggest angle or take my middle angle and make sure that I progress through that triangle. My next biggest angle was 68. Its side should be the middle side length. Yep, 13 is in the middle. And finally, my largest angle has to give me my largest side. Check, that works. I am feeling super confident about my triangle. I'm moving on to the next problem. Okay, seriously, use that proportionality check when we're going through and solving triangles. Okay, I'm hoping that that one went okay for us. I'm hoping that we had little hesitancy, that you were able to work your way through that in a pretty strategic manner. Okay, I told you we've got 3 problems for today. Let's jump into problem B. Okay, on the right side, you can see triangle DEF. Same instruction, we need to solve. I think you are ready to go through and solve this triangle, or at the very least, start it off. So, if you have a lot of hesitancy, if you are not confident in what you are doing, then I want you to try to find one property on that triangle right now, and then come back and check back in. If you find that that goes well, then let's keep working our way through. Okay, pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So you notice you were given angle F. That means you need to find angles D and E, and you need to find side F. You find those things, there is your solved triangle. Okay, I go through my progression. It's not a right triangle, so I cannot use Pythagorean or SOHCAHTOA. So that means I'm using sine law or cosine law. I want to use sine law because sine law is easier. But my problem is I do not have any pair of corresponding side and angle. And I don't have the means to find it. Like, it wasn't like the last triangle where you had two angles, well, you just had to figure out the third. Now you had that relation. Nope, you don't even have it. So, if, when you see that happen within a triangle, and you then go, oh, okay, I guess I'm stuck using cosine law, I think that's totally a valid way to feel about solving triangles. I try to use Pythagorean or sine law. I can't. I want to use sine law. I can't. Well, I'm stuck using cosine law. Totally good. There is something else in that triangle, though, that I maybe want to highlight for you. When I take a look at that triangle, I know within about 2 seconds that I need cosine law. There's a certain relationship in a triangle, and it's called side, angle, side. And when you see known information in that relationship, that becomes a cosine law problem. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, if you notice, you were given the side, given the angle, given the side. There is your side, angle, side. That becomes a cosine law problem. Now, I want to clarify further what side, angle, side means. It doesn't mean that you had like a side, an angle, and any side. Like if I knew that side F was 20 and not side D, it doesn't mean, hey, side, angle, side. No. What side, angle, side actually means for us is two sides and the contained angle. Like if you want to think about it, as you move around the triangle, they're consecutive. Two sides, contained angle. If I have that, then I have a cosine law problem. So I recognize side, angle, side. That means I'm going to use cosine law to find my opposite side to my angle. Okay, we're still relatively new with cosine law. I think this is a good opportunity for you to go ahead and try to write down your formula for cosine law. We need the version that's going to allow us to solve for side F. Okay, take a moment, try to write that down. Pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So I would love it if we were able to say, well, then I have to put my F all by itself. That means that I have the rest of Pythagorean theorem, so the squares of the other two, minus 2 of those cos of the angle. And there we go. I'm hoping that was pretty comfortable. Now let's start using it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the line that I think should be your first line. Okay, I do not know what F is. Maybe I keep my squared in there. I can calculate my D, my 20 squared, 400. I can calculate my E squared, 13 squared, 169. And I can calculate what 13 times 20 times 2 is. That's a 520 cos of my angle. That line would be the first line that I would write down if I were you. I wouldn't skip. Like, there's times where some of you are going to want to write this and ignore the fact that I haven't written down the squared yet. But you would want to write down this as your first line, and I'm just going to try to deter you from doing that. The reason for it, there's going to be times where you make mistakes. We're all human. We're going to goof up. And if you put down my first red line, I think that you will be able to identify if you sub something in incorrectly faster by having that first red line as opposed to jumping to my last one. Like you can see the individual sides squared. In my last line, I've squared my D and my E and combined them. It would require you to do more work to go back and check. So my advice to you, put in that first line. Okay, now I want to just go through a little bit. You could write that squared there, but this is one where I'm going to say jump a little bit. You know that you want to get rid of that squared. So on your next line, at the same time that you're going through and you are simplifying, then get rid of the squared. So take the square root. And what you'll notice is you jump to, there is the exact, fully simplified value for f. I cannot collect what's underneath because those are not like terms. Now I can go ahead and I can calculate that to get an approximate, and we should come in that f is approximately equal to 20.21 meters. There we go. Okay, hopefully that gave us a little bit of a reassuredness that we were sitting there going through, okay, hey, I do know my cosine law. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just label something on my diagram. I am going to put on that 20.21 meters just so we can see it. Okay, why did I do that? Because remember my progression. I want to use Pythagorean or SOHCAHTOA. I can't. Now I go ahead and I take a look. I want to use sine law, but I can't. So I used cosine law. Except now, as soon as I found that 20.21, I now have my magic ratio. I have my ratio on my f's. I know both, my angle and its corresponding side. I can start using sine law. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use sine law to find angle D or angle E. Okay, I want to progress you through a process. You notice that you have choice. Do you want to find D first? Do you want to find E first? I want to start putting an idea in your head, okay? That idea is, I want you to solve for the smallest property next. This is going to be something that as you progress through your math studies, this will become very important to you. You don't really see that importance this year. You will in the future. Guaranteed will. So the idea I want to put in your head is, I want you to go through and I want you to find the smallest property first every time. That way, when you get into that world where it does matter, it's already instinct. Okay, so what am I talking about? Well, you have a choice right now to solve for angle D or angle E. What I'm telling you to do is solve for the smallest angle first. We should be good to be able to identify which one of those angles has to be smaller and not just trust our eyes. Remember, big angles give us big opposite sides. Small angles give us small opposite sides. We can use the side lengths of D and E to dictate which angle has to be bigger. I'm hoping you can take a look and you notice that side E is smaller than side D, and therefore angle E has to be smaller than angle D. I'm finding angle E first. Okay, so if I'm finding my angle, then I'm going to put my angle on top. So sine E over 13, and now I get to use my magic ratio. I get to use my F's. So I know that the sine of 72 has to compare the same way as 20.21. Okay, why are we allowed to use rounded information in this case? It's because we have to. We don't have another means for it. Okay, we go through. Isolate your sine E, so multiply out your 13. And now you can go directly to your angle of E. Okay, I can calculate my 13 sine 72, divide it by 20.21. That now gives me a value for sine E. I know for me to get E, I have to do my inverse sine of that value because I'm going backwards. So when I do my inverse sine of that value, I'm going to get approximately 38 degrees. And there we go. Okay. What you could then do would do the exact same thing. And you could say sine D over blah, 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 blah equals, there's my F, sine 72. Oh, and I'm going to tell you, don't. This is where it pops up to one of our other little asterisks. That statement that says you always use the given information. You always use exact information. Always, always, always. Except, and here's another one of those exceptions. Except, if you don't need to use technology, I want you to notice that as soon as you found that angle E was 38, you have two angles within your triangle. So find the third. If you wanted to go through and use sine law, you could, but I would hope that I have everybody that knows that they're going to use 180 minus the sum of the other two. Okay? So this is one of those little exceptions that says if you know that you can find that value without using technology, then do so. I don't need, yes, I may have used a calculator to do some calculations within that, but I didn't need it. And there we go. Okay, I'm doing my last little check, proportionality. Smallest angle, 38. Smallest opposite side, yes. Next smallest, 70. Yep, a little bit bigger. Biggest angle, biggest side. Like I might even go a little bit more in terms of my check. You notice that you had an angle of 70 here and 72. So those two sides should have been pretty close, and we even get confirmation on that. I'm feeling super confident about my solution. I'm moving on to the next problem. Okay, there was a fully involved problem for us. Take a look at your solution. You used cosine law to get one side. You were then able to use sine law to get another angle, and then you had your 180. That's pretty comprehensive. I'm hoping it went well. Okay, I mentioned 3 problems. Let's jump into our last one now. Okay, there is our last one. So, I want you to go start to finish on this thing. Okay? If you're really not feeling confident, then okay, check back in part way. But seriously, try to go the full way. Steal some problem-solving practice and see how well we do. Okay, pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So you take a peek at your triangle, and you very quickly come in on, wow, I wasn't given any angles. Yes, you were given all 3 sides of your triangle. So you take a peek, it's not a right triangle, no SOHCAHTOA, no Pythagorean, and because you don't know any of the angles, you can't use sine law. So we are stuck using cosine law. Okay, same thing as what I said before. There's a little acronym for this one too. This is a side, side, side case. I know within 2 seconds, when I'm given all 3 sides of a triangle, that becomes a cosine law problem. I know it is. So you can either go through that progression, like I just talked about, try to use your SOHCAHTOA Pythagorean, try to use your sine law, you're stuck with cosine law. Or if you got a decent memory, maybe we put that side, 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 and side angle side in our back pocket for some quick recognition. Okay, I'm working my way through. I know that I could use cosine law to find any one of those angles. But you're going to follow my advice. And that advice was always find the smallest thing first. So when I take a peek, I'm going to go on the hunt for the smallest side because I know that that smallest side has to give me the opposite smallest angle. So I am going to use cosine law to find R first. Okay, maybe I'm still at that point where I'm writing out my relationship. So maybe I'm still at, okay, so if I need my R, then I have to put my R all by itself. On my other side, P and Q, so that means I need a P squared plus a Q squared. There's my Pythagorean. Now I adjust it. Minus 2 of those, cos, and there's the angle I needed. Okay, remember, I never need to see that. That's a formula. That becomes background knowledge for you. Like, you have to know that. So if you wanted to come in on then, okay, well, my R squared is 100. There's my 10 squared. My P squared is 144. My Q squared is 169. Minus, well now, if I do my 12 times 13, that's 156. So if I double that now, then that's a 312. And there is my cos of R. Okay, this becomes an opportunity where if you hit a snag getting this one going, I want you to pause the video now that you see that red line, and I want us to get some information about how comfortable we are solving that red equation. That means you need to try it on your own. Okay, take a moment here. If we had some difficulty, try to finish this one off on our own. Pause the video now. Okay, we're back. So I may go through and collect my 144 and my 169. I notice that on the right side, I do not have like terms. I need to get rid of that 313. So when I subtract that, I'm going to get a negative 213. Okay, for me to get that cos R all by itself, I have to divide out that negative 312. Well, cos R then is going to be 213 divided by 312. Remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. You can show me the inverse step, or you can go straight to finding your angle. So the inverse cos of 213 divided by 312, rounded off to the nearest degree, should give us 47 degrees. And I'm hoping we matched up. Good. Okay, if that's the case, you just found your angle R, and I would argue to you, you should be off to the races. Okay, if we hit a snag to this point, this becomes another opportunity to pause the video and try it on our own. Otherwise, you're coming along with me. Okay, now that I know angle R, I now have a side and its corresponding angle. I am not using cosine law again. Yes, I could use cosine law to now go and find angle P, and I could use it with exact information. Except remember that little asterisk. You can use it if it's so much easier. And we would argue to you, sine law is easier than cosine law. That is, I'm going to be finished solving that value using sine law faster than what you would be using cosine law. So you are okay then to jump in and say, well, okay, I'm going to now find P. Smallest thing first. So I'm going to find angle P. So sine P compares to 12 the exact same way as the sine of 47 compares to 10. I can solve for my P by multiplying that out. I am hoping that this process is pretty automatic to you. You should have done this, I don't know, 30 times by now. Like seriously, maybe 30 times by now. So when you get that answer for your right fraction and you now take the inverse sine of that, we should get 61 degrees pretty easily. Okay, you now have your 61. You have 2 of your angles. We can now find our third. Okay, this is where I'm going to argue to you. You really kind of get like a full picture feeling if as you're solving for your angle, you're considering proportionality. Like I've progressed my way through the smallest angle to the middle angle, now to the biggest. So I can see that pattern with my smallest angle, bigger angle. I now know when I go through to find Q and I'm calculating 180 minus the sum of the other 2, I have to get an answer that is bigger than 61 because I'm solving for the angle opposite the biggest side. This has to be my biggest angle. If when I calculated this, I didn't get something that was the biggest, then I knew I goofed up. As I'm going through, I see that there's my biggest angle. I know I'm good. Okay, there is my full solution. How did we do? Okay, if you take a look back on all 3 problems, the first one, hey, we could just use sine law to get that thing going. The next one required cosine law. The next one required cosine law. The difference was in B, I needed cosine to find a side, and in C, I needed it to find an angle. If I can put a general idea in your head, and I think that this is a good one to follow, you should only use cosine law once on a triangle. Because once you've used it, you will have a side and a corresponding angle. Flip over to sine law and you are good. Okay, I'm hoping today went well, and I'm hoping that you feel really comfortable working through these acute triangles, right? They're not right triangles anymore. No more SOHCAHTOA. You make sure that you're good to use the other. One little side note as we wrap some things up. When we flip back in and we start working through right triangles, make sure that you are not using sine law or cosine law on any right triangles. If you were to use sine law or cosine law on a right triangle, you will not earn full marks for that. Yes, I know you're going to get the right answer because your theory is fine, but you're actually showing a lack of understanding when you could have just used Pythagorean or SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so make sure that we are only using sine law and cosine law on non-right triangles, and I think we are good to go. Okay, jump in and get some practice. This is going to give you a really good gauge of where you're at with everything we finished off the unit. Okay, best of luck.